Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I'm so glad you decided to tune in to us today because I have a very special guest. Now, sometimes on I Know That Nerd, or most of the time on I Know That Nerd, I have people who I have met in real life who I know pretty well. Now, half of that is true about today's guest. I have met Pat Sponaugle. Am I saying your name right?
Yes, actually, you nailed it.
And do you prefer Pat or Patrick?
I go by Pat, but I'm not offended by Patrick, but whatever.
I'm probably just going to call you Pat.
That's good. Good.
But so we have met. We have done a panel together at Con of Thrones last year, but we the con being what it is, we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk before and or after. I believe I ran into you once while I was rushing to buy beer to ransom my stolen baby.
Sure, I'm sure that happened.
I'm pretty sure that happened. I was going this way and you were going this way, and I'm like, I have to go buy beer so I could get baby Aegon back.
Yeah.
Most of my regulars will know that story. I just happened to bump into you in the hallway for that. But anyway, I'm burying the lead. Pat, say hello to everyone and tell them who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone. I'm Pat Sponaugle. I'm known for writing some things about Game of Thrones. The past couple of years, I was a feature writer for Watchers on the Wall, and I got that job. I say job, I'm not really paid for it, but you know what I mean. I got that gig by having a blog where I wrote about 200 essays on Game of Thrones. And I'm also known for being a nice guy on Twitter. So I think that's probably the most important thing about me is that I'm nice to people on Twitter.
Yeah. And Twitter actually plays into, that's the primary way I know you. That's the primary way I've interacted with you. But, the references you make on Twitter, as I was telling you before we started, have led me to go, he likes all the same stuff I like. This must be one of the coolest men on the planet.
No, it's just that you and I both like the best of the cool things that everybody can enjoy. So we just embrace things that are fun. So I think, there's a lot of cool people like cool stuff.
There you go. We'll go with that. It's the best explanation I've heard all day. So yeah, Pat, I like to usually start these type of conversations with the same question, and that is, what is the thing that let you know that you were a nerd? Can you pinpoint that thing that takes you back?
Yeah, I guess even like in elementary school, I was like into science fiction, and that was kind of like a barometer that lets you know,
right,
if you were a nerd or not, if you like science fiction or fantasy. And as a kid in the book fairs, I would pick up, whatever looked kind of space-like. So that's my story. At an early age, I knew I liked stuff that was, fanciful and fun, and to me, that was a nerdy thing.
So, are you more of a sci-fi guy as opposed to a fantasy guy?
I don't make a distinction.
Okay.
I think I would enjoy either because I was a big Conan fan, but I would read like a lot of science fiction. So I don't know if I could choose between my babies. Like I can tell you that I was more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan, but I love Marvel, and I never understood why DC and Marvel had to fight over things. But as a kid, I just enjoyed reading DC comics because I was boring. And each story in a comic was usually self-contained, and I was not mature enough to enjoy a story that did not get me, satisfaction at the end. But now I think I would have appreciated reading a lot more Marvel with a better appreciation.
Right. Well, that's interesting because my sort of introduction to you're a nerd was Dungeons and Dragons, 9 years old, which almost inherently is more of a long story format, and then that might have informed my taste to this very day.
I'm slightly older than you, only slightly.
Yeah,
but, probably about 6 years older than you. And I don't know when you first started playing D&D, but I started playing it in high school. a buddy of mine in freshman year rolled in with one of the blue book, which had details for the first three levels.
Right.
And we had no 20-sided die. We had no idea that you could have a die that had more than 6 sides. And so we had to fudge a lot of what we were doing. And so I enjoyed playing a lot of fantasy stuff, I think I enjoyed reading science fiction more.
That's fair, though. I mean, they obviously both have stories worth telling in them, despite the fact that I personally do see a huge distinction between science fiction and fantasy. Now, there are two genres that you can blend, sometimes very successfully, but I'm one of those people that actually does think there's quite a distinction between the two.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm not choosing which one I like best, but there is a difference to me, and it's not easy enough just to say that magic is just a super advanced technology if it's advanced enough. It's like, well, there's something magical about the magic in fantasy that makes it fantasy, and you just have to you either have it or you don't, and I think you can usually tell the difference.
I'm with you. I mean, there's that famous quote, any sufficiently advanced technology, et cetera, et cetera. I won't bore you with the rest. We all know it.
Right.
But you're right. They kind of can serve the same purpose in a story. I just feel like fantasy and science fiction are telling different types of stories.
No, I agree. And I know that George R. R. Martin has talked about, he has given some kind of like sensory difference to fantasy. There is this kind of like experience that you get when you're reading fantasy that you don't necessarily get when reading science fiction. And I can't pull that quote out for you, but I swear on the Nauticast, Jeff and Emmett talk about that. Like every third episode, they will bring up the difference, the special thing about fantasy quote from George. By the way, I'm loving the chat, and I'm loving the chat messages that are popping up. I would like to respond to all of them, but I feel that might break the flow.
Oh, trust me, breaking the flow is part of what we do here. I have one purpose, and that is to make sure we don't steer into any icebergs. Other than that, let's just talk about whatever you want to talk about. And I've got some questions for you. Some of my supporters have sent in questions. So.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I am here at your disposal.
Well, we are here to learn more about you. So let's start with early life, and I'm not trying to dox you or anything, but what was childhood like other than reading science fiction books?
Yeah. Okay. So not everyone knows that I was born in Cuba, but I was born on Guantanamo Bay Naval Base. My dad was in the Navy. And so my early years was going from one naval base to another. So I grew up for the first few years of my life in San Diego. And then when my dad was in Vietnam, because I'm that old, I lived in West Virginia with my mom and my grandparents. So once I hit around 6, we settled in Southeast Virginia in Chesapeake, and I was there up through college. And I made friends. I had a nice neighborhood where I could ride my bike around everywhere. Like I said, I would read science fiction. My buddies and I started playing D&D in high school, and we even had a girl play D&D with us. And this was like a now before I get yelled at, say like, "Oh, are you saying that D&D is just a boy?"
It was not the norm in the 80s.
It was unusual. I'm sure that there were a lot of women that enjoyed playing D&D. In fact, in my high school, there were a group of girls that played D&D, and they would not let us play with them. And that was like a fascinating story, because I would talk to them about that, and they would always play chaotic evil characters. I'm like, "What are you doing playing chaotic evil?" And they're like, "What are you doing not playing chaotic evil?" And I thought that was an amazing perspective of what was going on. But we did have one girl who would occasionally play D&D with us. It made us all feel like kings. Yeah.
See, all right. So D&D has been brought up twice now. I think we're just going to go there. Sure. So you started. It was probably the summer of 1984, the first time I ever played D&D. So I would have been 9, turning 10 in December of that year. And I remember that character too. And it came out of that box set that could only take you through the first 3 levels, like you're talking about. I remember it being red though, and a blue one being the second set. But who knows? Who cares? But at any rate, I remember my dwarf character, and I wanted to wear 2 sets of armor so I could just run around killing as many orcs as possible. Which
2 sets of armor? Oh, you wanted to wear 2 sets of armor.
Yep, I wanted to wear armor over armor.
Wow. I love that. I never thought of that.
Well, 9-year-old me sure as heck did. And I got to tell you too, like by the time I was 12, I was making my own games, and by the time I was 16, I was building my own game worlds to play D&D in, and I still play D&D to this day.
My daughter just started playing D&D because she found some friends of hers who wanted to play D&D, and they had it all on their Kindles, and they were playing it during the quarantine. So that was very exciting. But I like John dragging you by talking about you were playing D&D at the dawn of his existence.
Yeah. Since the dawn of time, as far as John's concerned.
Yeah, I started playing in 1980.
Okay, played, so you were a little bit ahead of me.
Yeah, just a little bit. And it was me and my friends Dave and John, and we would have 3-man adventures, which usually would be one of us would be dungeon mastering, and would have like an NPC that would be like our character, part of the group, who would not do anything of value because that would be cheating.
Right.
But we would play. We won't go through like the big litany of RPGs. We'd play some Traveler. I really enjoyed Chaosium's Stormbringer game. Go ahead.
The Stormbringer one, the what is it? Elric of Melnimini? Yes. Oh my God, you still have it.
Yeah, I keep it around because I really like that game because it was sufficiently different from D&D that you could have like a completely different experience with it.
Right. Yeah, there were a lot. I mean, D&D was the first, but I'm not going to tell you it's even the best. Not for its mechanics or its game world, although it's obviously survived, and its modern iteration is actually quite good, I think.
I agree.
Once you realize what it actually is.
Right.
It's not a game about normal people. It's a game about people who can ascend to godhood eventually.
Yeah, I agree.
So are you still playing at all, or is there just no time because of your adulting?
Adulting takes into it. The last time I played D&D was maybe 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But I had played role-playing games between that time. The last big campaign I had was a Hong Kong action movie simulation game called Feng Shui.
Okay.
And that was an awesome game. So I could talk about Feng Shui a lot, but I won't. But it was a crazy game. I mean, it was a game where everyone had guns or kung fu, and it went through ancient China period time up into this like dystopian future of monsters and a police state. So it was a fun game. I recommend anybody wanting to try something different to find the game Feng Shui. Well, it's Feng Shui is the way it looks like, but it's Feng Shui.
Yeah. I would imagine most people know how to spell feng shui these days. And yes, Aziz pointing out the double Sanri shirt action. We noticed. I've got North remembers, and he's got the Night's Watch. But yes,
it worked out.
We did not plan this. We just it just worked out that way.
So I'm briefly going back to my childhood for a moment. You had asked about what it was like growing up. I'll tell you, my time being like a geek really blossomed one summer when my dad ran out of reading like some medical journals that he brought along on summer vacation. And so he asked me for a book to read because I had brought some science fiction books. I had a book by Miriam Zimmer Bradley called Hunters of the Red Moon. And it was a trash book. I mean, it was just like a garbage book, but it was fun to read. And so I gave it to my dad. It was like stupid space opera stuff. He lost his mind about how good it was. He thinks it's like the best book ever. So he was so excited by this book that I would loan him other books over summer vacations. And I had him read Ringworld by Larry Niven, and I had him read Dune. And I was shocked that my dad made his way through Dune, because Dune is like a serious book. It's like a real
pretty
thing.
Darn dense. I haven't made my way through Dune.
Oh man, I love Dune. I'm looking forward to the movie coming out next year. So having something that I could hang out and talk to my dad about in regards to science fiction was cool, because my dad really respected. He was an ophthalmologist, and he was a very serious man, very professional man. But he respected the imagination of the authors who could come up with like a whole world, is the way he would talk about it. So a couple of years ago for Father's Day, I gave him a Game of Thrones to read. And I told him, Dad, this is a really good book. It's got a lot of stuff going in there, but it's really good about good parenting and bad parenting, good fathers and bad fathers. And I don't want to reduce the book down to that simple example, but I thought that way it was a good Father's Day gift. And he loved it, and he went out and bought like the box set. He found out there's a TV show and said, "I'm going to watch it." I said, "Dad, let me tell you, there's boobs and bare asses in that show." And he's like, "Well, I like boobs and bare asses." So he jumped in to watch the show. So that's been fun, hanging out with my dad and talking to him about A Song of Ice and Fire. He's good. I'm sorry. Good.
No, I'm just saying, absolutely can relate. My mother is in the chat right now. My mother is in the chat every week. She's just about as big a nerd as anybody I know. And yeah, we watch a lot of the same stuff. She's watching Community right now on my recommendation, which I think we brought that up before we started the stream. Community, we share a love of that show. She's who I go watch Star Wars movies with at the theater and stuff. And so having that thing to share with your parent, it changes the dynamic. And I couldn't be happier with my relationship with my mom, and probably largely because we can bond over that type of thing.
And since you brought up Community, I wanted to just point out that it was kind of like the geeky community, the geek society that I would hang out with got me to watch Community. So I listened to a podcast about two guys who played a video game that I did not play, but I didn't mind it because I enjoyed listening to these guys talk about things. And while they were talking about the game, they would also talk about what they were watching, and they loved Community. So they were discussing all about the second season of Community. So my wife and I got all the DVDs for the first season because we were just looking for something to watch. And so thanks to two geeky guys with a geeky interest that I actually did not share, it got me to watch Community, and I became like a giant fan of Community because of it.
Oh yeah, me too. We could jump on that for a minute. I
Sure.
think that show is brilliant in a way that almost nothing has been before. It is the anti-sitcom in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yeah. And it plays up really well to the strength of Dan Harmon and his kind of like geeky nature and his big Campbellian story circle that he could roll out some like really super tight constructed stories with great archetype of characters, populating it. So good.
And speaking of, you wrote something not long ago that compared the 7 main characters in Community to the Faith of the Seven.
Yes.
And that was an excellent read. Now, it helps if you know both properties when you go into that, but I thought that was it was so much fun to sit there and think about each of these 7 characters. Well, who are they actually reflecting in the Faith of the Seven? And I thought all of your sort of analyses and what's the word I'm looking for? Conclusions,
right,
were pretty spot on.
Yeah, I owe a lot. In the first Count of Thrones, there was a panel on the religion in Westeros, and Genevieve Burgess, who is like rusty-headed girl on Twitter, she had this great discussion of the 7, based on like societal role archetypes, and it was a level of discussion that I had never really thought about when it came to the 7. And so whenever I see like 7 people, and I try to think of them in relation to the Faith of the Seven because it's fun, and because the Faith of the 7 archetypes are so broadly generic and applicable to so many things, you can have these kind of discussions of pulling out of the 7 study group members and how they relate. So thank you. I'm glad. I appreciate that you read that article and that you enjoyed it.
I mean, I've read a lot of your stuff, especially back when you were covering Game of Thrones a little bit more. I read Watchers on the Wall quite a bit, but just that one was recent, and it was like so outside of anything I've seen you write before, or anybody else for that matter. Who the heck has compared Community to right. Game of Thrones, except for that one episode where they have sort of like a
Bloodlines of Conquest, yeah.
Bloodlines of Conquest. I couldn't remember the name of the episode, but yes. But furthermore, about Community, like one of the things that struck me and is a selling point, I think, for other people, is the way they can take some classic movie and make a complete spoof of it while still it not being they're not taking the piss out of it, really. It's very tongue in cheek, and it's a loving homage at the same time that it's satire.
It's very good. It's very good natured, and also they will preload or they will load into the episode. Like I've never seen the movie My Dinner with Andre.
Me neither.
But there's a great My Dinner with Andre homage in the second season, and Abed gives like a very heartfelt summary of what's important about My Dinner with Andre that pulls you in and recontextualize the episode, even if you've never seen the movie. So I think that show is brilliant and how it kind of like carries so much, weight of what's going on. And also, like you mentioned, it's tongue in cheek, but it's very loving because that show has so much heart. I mean, there's a lot of like, insults that they throw around and so on, and they bust on one another. And yet there are like super touching moments where profound things are said that are all driven by kindness and connection, which I think, I really support personally. So I love that. I love Community so much. Everyone should watch Community.
So who, I mean, I'm going to make you pick your baby again. Which of the 7 is your, who's your person?
Well, Abed's my favorite. I mean, Abed is my favorite character. Everything about the show when it deals with Abed, I'm super happy about that because he's the geekiest one. But I feel that much like Hurley on Lost is my favorite. I'm not going to say that he's like me or I'm like Abed. They are themselves so good and so perfect that I just love them so much. But I'm not going to pretend that I'm an Abed or a Hurley. But if anybody, I would probably, because I'm getting so old now, I'm probably more like Pierce, even though I'm not racist. I'm slightly racist. Everybody is slightly racist. But Pierce is so like unabashedly irrelevant now that he's getting older, and I'm getting older. So I certainly feel, my that I am an observer of all the younger people going on. I just hope I don't end up as bad as Pierce Hawthorne ever is. But I don't want to say that I don't recognize things going on with him that I could share in.
I'm just going to answer Kolnitsky here real quick. It's pronounced Sponaugle, I think.
Sponaugle, yeah.
It wasn't here at the start when we covered that. But thanks for stopping by, my man.
Yeah, but see, I say Sponaugle, but my dad says Sponaugle, and my grandma said Sponaugle, and I never realized that we were saying it differently until my wife pointed out that none of us were saying our last names the same way.
I think my first guess was Sponaugle, but I'm pretty sure I heard Matt, Joe Magician, pronounce it Sponaugle, so I wouldn't like, he probably knows. I went with that. But,
I appreciate the question, though, because you can pronounce my last name any way you like. It's totally fine. But I do appreciate people wanting to know how to pronounce it because teachers in middle school and high school never cared how they were going to butcher my name. So,
yeah, mine's 5 letters long, and people still get it wrong. Well, not so much anymore, but I've been called Shark, Sparks, Starks. You name it. I can only imagine what it's like with a name that's as uncommon as yours.
Yeah. I just learned how to. Hey, John. I just learned how to look at the chat. This is exciting.
Oh, did you find out?
I just found out. I had it clicked on the private chat.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Yes, I don't know that anybody's ever called me Steven Stank, but that's not true. Ever since that movie came out, it has happened. But yeah. So, MCU fan, Pat?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, the MCU allowed me to get my daughter at a young age interested in superhero stuff. Because when she was very young, we took her to see Thor.
Okay.
She enjoyed Thor, and we saw Captain America. At the end of Captain America, they had the trailer for the Avengers.
Right.
And my daughter got so excited because they showed like previews of the Thor trailer, or the Avengers trailer. And so she saw Thor, and his hair was longer. And my daughter got so excited, and she said, "We have to see the Avengers. It's got Thor, and his hair is even longer." And she was so excited about that. So
The Avengers.
The Avengers, and so that made me laugh so much. So I've taken her to see like all of these movies. She is big into it, and she'll always ask me, "Was that from the comics? Was that from the comics?" We were watching Venom last night, and at the end there's like some kind of like preview for that Carnage will be showing up, and she's like, "Dad, is Carnage something that I should know about?" I'm like, "Yes, yes." And there's nothing better than me being a geek dad, being able to share geek knowledge with my daughter. So I'm so happy with the MCU for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to dox her either, but just so that we can have some sort of maybe better. How old is she?
She's 19 now, so I'm not afraid to talk about her. When she was younger, I would refer to her as the daughter, and I wouldn't really give any details. But once she hit like 16, I began to call her daughter Grace, and now I don't mind just talking about what she's doing, where she's going to school, what she's doing for the summer. I don't mind talking about it, but I used to be very careful about that. I appreciate your discretion.
Yep, that's right. Like, people know my daughter's names, but I don't go into their like details of stuff for sure. I just, to my closer friends, yeah, sure, but like, I'm with you. I don't talk about it on Twitter just a whole lot, especially the younger ones.
Sure.
I have a 23-year-old. She's got her own kid and doing her own thing, and great. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I can't remember exactly how you put it, but something about the way you said you were excited to share those movies with your daughter. Is there some reason why it was important to share superhero stories with your daughter?
I grew up reading comics, and I read comics pretty much all the way through my life, and then I stopped when I became like an adult. But at work, some of my buddies on Wednesdays would go and get comics and get pizza, and so I went back with them. And so that happened about the time that we became parents. And so I was enjoying reading comics. And I'll tell you what's cool about comics when you're an adult. Before I had a child, I would read all the time. I'd read books, like real physical books, all the time. And that dropped off sharply when I had a child because you're focused on that kid, or you're exhausted at the end of the day when you normally lay in bed, reading a book. But a comic, you can read and keep an eye on a kid at the same time because you're sucking in information visually. And I mean, of course, when you read a book, you're sucking in visually, but you know what I mean. You're reading text, and you are building like the images in your mind. A lot of that load is lifted from you when you're reading a comic. And I'm not saying that you're dumb if you read a comic or whatever, but it's convenient. If I got to watch the kids, and I got to make sure they don't set the house on fire, and I also want to have like a story and entertain myself, that you can do that. You can like responsibly enjoy a comic. And so I recommend adults read graphic novels. I recommend it just so you can get some kind of like storytelling into your life while you're doing something that requires a little bit of vigilance.
I kind of like the way you put that. Like, read graphic novels. Please enjoy responsibly.
Yes.
Like it's your alcohol advertisement.
Yes.
Love it. Okay, well, one of my there's no way you're going to be able to answer this, but like, I'm going to ask it anyway. Vanessa Amesti, longtime supporter of mine. Maybe you know her from Twitter, maybe not, but anyway, lovely young lady. She sent the question that she always sends whenever I have it. I know that nerd. And it is top 5 theories for the Winds of Winter.
Oh, this is brutal. Well, first off,
most people can't get 5.
Brutal. All right. There's a lot of thought that has been gone on, in the fandom. So it's cheating for me to say a bunch of different things. For the Winds of Winter, Stannis will defeat the Boltons in the phrase. I mean, we kind of think that'll happen, right? And that's not even my theory. It's a theory that I just like, that I've heard. I've never read Amory Wars, by the way, Ed Tollett. Sorry about that. So that's one. I'm fairly certain that something similar that happened on the show will happen with Arya. It won't be presented as lamely as it was on the show, but at some point she's going to have to break free from Bravos and head back to Westeros. My personal feeling, and because I wrote that as a theory for Watchers of the Wall, is that she will not be able to faceless man her way around Westeros without bringing some kind of heat down on her from the faceless man. So I don't think now she didn't do a whole lot on the show other than kill the Freys, but even that I think should have probably got some kind of a heat on her. So I'm just going to go ahead and recycle some of my old theories from that and go with that. Now, will that happen the Winds of Winter? Sure, why not? She has to leave Bravos at some point to come back. Jon Snow's going to come back to life. Woohoo! Yes, I think that's a pretty solid theory. So I'll go with a pretty easy one on that. Man, I wish I had thought about this ahead of time, and I would.
Yeah, there's a reason I don't do this. Although Courtney Mazza is like feeling your pain. I did an I Know That Nerd with Courtney last year, and I like to hit people, just get them off the top of their head, and move on. It's not like I don't want you reading off a sheet of paper. You know what I mean?
Yes. So I would like to try to come up with a theory that doesn't track with what we've seen on the show, but I feel that the show after season 5 probably gave us some overall things that will work. So what are we missing that was not in the show that we know was going to be in the on the books? I mean, I would say that Stannis is going to burn Shireen, but I don't want to say that. So let's say, okay, I think that the Hodor stuff will not take place in the far north. I think the Hodor stuff will take place at the wall at the Black Gate. So that's the door that Hodor will be holding when they do that.
That is fantastic.
So is that 4 that I've done? Jon Snow. It's a cop out for me to say Jon Snow. Jon Snow, Hodor. Arya will do something similar to what's going on, where she'll break the Faceless Man rules, and we'll have to bug out. And what's the first thing that I said? Did I say anything?
I don't remember, man. I'm hanging on.
Stannis will win the Battle of Ice against the Freys and the Boltons. So those are 4. A 5th one.
I'm going to be impressed if you can come up with 5 good, solid theories.
What I'm going to say is that reports of Loras Tyrell's injuries were completely fabricated to throw Cersei off her game, because she sent him to Dragonstone to take it before she would allow him to go west to deal with Euron's invasion of the Reach. And then she gets word that he was badly injured. I think that was all bogus. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say that was bogus, because whenever any news comes to Cersei, like Davos has been beheaded at White Harbor, it's bullshit. And so I'm just going to go ahead and roll with that as well. So that'll be number 5. That Loras is totally fine. He was not injured. And that'll be my number 5. So Bernie thinks that it could be the Winterfell Crypt Door for Hodor. Could be. I think you could be totally right.
I mean, it's possible, but I also love the idea of it being the Black Gate that he's trying to hold open. Poor Hodor. I
mean, the Black Gate is so cool. I mean, it is like because occasionally, stuff that goes on in A Song of Ice and Fire, there's like the underlying core of magic, and then it's magic, and so the wall has that underlying core of magic. I mean, the wall is completely impossible because it's too big. It's made of ice. It's a stable glacier that's going to start like rippling and falling down. But so we know magic is involved, just keeping the wall up on its own. And then you run into the Black Gate, which is like alive. You have to talk to it to get through it. So I love the Black Gate. So I definitely hope it returns for us at the Night Fort at some part in the narrative.
It's definitely one of the few like overtly this is magic type things going on in the story.
Yeah.
Like even from when we get Melisandre's POV, we figure out that, okay, a lot of what she's doing is probably just smoke and mirrors for.
But we know that she has power because she can set shit on fire from a distance. She burns Orel's eagle. So I respect that. I respect that Melisandre has magic and is also like a big hoaxer as well. So I respect everything that goes on with Melisandre.
Yeah, I agree. Nessie says the Black Gate is the craziest magic thing we've seen in the story, and I'm trying to think if I agree with her or not. What do you think?
I think we've seen crazier magic things. I mean, not only starting with the Birth of Dragons or the others in general, but Renly being stabbed by a shadow baby was crazy. I mean, that was amazing. So I think that might be our craziest thing is shadow assassins.
Faceless Man tech is pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, shapeshifting is crazy, but it's something that I expect in my fantasy novels. Now,
Right.
you might say like, well, Pat, don't you expect shadow assassins in your fantasy novels? I guess I do, but I was not expecting Renly to be killed by a shadow assassin. I was just not expecting that at all. Yes, Julie, that's a Steelers towel. I have a window back there, and so much light was coming in that I wanted to block it off. So my sister made me this Steelers towel. It's not really a towel. It's like a little rug, like a little blanket. I can talk about why I like the Steelers. I'm not from Pittsburgh. I have no association with the team. I can barely tell you anybody who has ever played on the Steelers. But when I was in elementary school, I grew up in Chesapeake, and everybody liked the Washington Redskins. But my friend Dave Rusnick, who I played D&D with years later, he loved the Steelers, and he would talk to me about the Steelers all the time because they had won. This is in the 70s. They had won so many Super Bowl championships. So he infected me with a love for the Steelers. And even though I don't pay attention to football, whenever they're in the Super Bowl, I'm crazy happy. But I'll call myself a Steelers fan, even though I can't back it up. Don't ask me any stats. Don't ask me anything about it. But I will root for the Steelers no matter what.
You're allowed to root for whoever you want. I don't really care about sports ball either. But I just thought it was hilarious that Kelly here said, now you need to block out the Steelers curtain.
Well, because I live near Baltimore, the Baltimore Ravens and the Steelers have a rivalry. And I will support the Ravens unless they're playing against the Steelers when I have to, root for my first love. And I get a lot of heat. I've got like a Steelers keychain. Occasionally I have to pull it out at work and people will see that. And they're like, what? They'll give me crap, but it's okay. Because I love the Steelers for no good reason. And that makes it perfect. Nobody can give me a hard time about it because, it's the Steelers. I love the Steelers. Why not?
They're the team of your youth. I understand.
Right.
But that's a great story, though. Like, so being a native Texan and living most of my life in and around Dallas, yeah. I grew up as a Cowboys fan. Like, don't care, but like, I kind of want them to do good. But like, when Jerry Jones bought him, I'm just like, it's all been downhill since then.
Yep.
But like living in Texas, I also get what it's like when somebody walks around wearing any football gear that is not Cowboy stuff. It's the same. It's like, what? You've got something really disgusting on your shirt there.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, I apologize to anyone who does not like the Steelers that I'm stressing you out by having the Steelers banner back there, but too bad. I have one of the terrible towels, and I wore it like a cape at a Super Bowl party when the Steelers were playing one year, and I was Steeler man, and I was quite proud. I had a Steelers T-shirt. It's like the most football-y I get was that one time when I should have been a Steeler man. That's all I can say. That's all I can say.
Right, and that's fair. Padar says your first sword in your D&D game forged the fires of Pittsburgh.
It's true. I'm not going to argue.
So, are you a Ravens guy now? Then is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Oh, sure. I mean, I'll support the Ravens when they're not playing the Steelers. I mean, I'm
Right.
happy. I'm happy for the Ravens to do well because they're a local team, and I have no reason not to like the Ravens, even though there's a Raven Steelers rivalry. I don't care, but I will root for the Ravens. Now my mother-in-law, who used to live with us, she was a New England Patriots fan because she loved Tom Brady. She would go
Right.
on and on about how he's so handsome and he's so intelligent, and it was funny. It was just so funny. I'd roll by, and she's like, "Pat, the New England Patriots are playing today. They are going to win. What will your team do?" And I'm like, "I don't care. I just don't care." But she would just, she was such a Patriots fan, and and it was only because she had like done the research, and she loved Brady as a quarterback because he was so good at being a quarterback.
Right.
Yes, I would not like Brady because he's not a Pittsburgh Steeler,
Yeah.
and he's a cheater. I'll go ahead and say that right now.
Yeah. I mean, no argument for me. The Patriots are my favorite team too. If it wasn't for the Patriots, it wouldn't have anybody to root against.
Right.
So, like, my second favorite team is who are the Patriots playing this week? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like, that's who I'm rooting for.
But to all my friends who like the Patriots, I love you. I don't actually hate the Patriots. I'm glad that your team does well, like all the time. But we can all get along. We can all enjoy football.
Right. My mom says Tom Brady will always have an asterisk after his name. And you're not wrong.
Yeah.
And my mom is that informed person too. Like, she is the commissioner of her 2 fantasy football leagues, or at least one of them. Like, she runs the whole show. She's got spreadsheets. Like, maybe y'all don't know this, but saying my mom has a spreadsheet for that is just like, she makes a spreadsheet like most of us put on a new pair of pants in the morning.
Well, very good. Very good.
So she's got all of her stats, and yeah, she's the football guy person. I can hear her laughing in the next room, probably. I'm not sure what I said, but I'm pretty hilarious, so could be anything. So, Pat.
Yes.
Growing up, like, what do you have any memories of Cuba at all? Because I was also a very young child. I was born in the States, but we moved to Germany when I was very young. And my first memories are of Germany. Do you have any Cuban memories?
The only memories of Cuba that I have are from seeing slideshows that my dad would show all the time. I was maybe 6 months or like 9 months years old. It was under a year old when we moved. I have much more vivid memories of San Diego growing up, my first few years in San Diego. I remember being terrified because I saw The Wizard of Oz. And when the team first meets the wizard, he's the big giant head and he's yelling at them, and the lion runs and jumps out of the palace. I was maybe like 3 years old. Scared me out of my mind. I had nightmares about the giant head of the wizard coming to get me, for weeks. It was terrifying. So that's what I remember San Diego for. No memories of Cuba. No memories.
Okay, it's weird what we retain from our childhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, scares like that. So, are you still scared to watch The Wizard of Oz?
No, I would watch The Wizard of Oz all the time. And in fact, when my daughter was young, we went to see The Wizard of Oz down in D.C. They was playing at one of the classic theaters there.
Mm-hmm.
I told her that it might be scary, that she would see this big head and it would be yelling, but everything was okay. We were with her, and she was like, I don't care. That was totally fine. Whatever. So it worked out. But she was not afraid of The Wizard of Oz, and she loved Oz the Great and Powerful when we saw that in the theaters as well. But no, Wizard of Oz scared me unbelievably. It took me a few years before I could watch it again and get past my fear of it.
Yeah, so like for me, I think the movie that got me that way was E.T. When he runs into E.T. in the cornfield, I was just like, I was so done with that movie at that moment. Like, screaming alien in the cornfield. Nope, I'm out of here, man.
I'm going to tell you a shocking confession. I have never seen E.T.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have nothing against it, but I just have never
Right.
seen it. So at some point I should see it, but
I mean, I
never seen
think
it.
you should, just because like Spielberg never made a bad movie.
Except for all the ones that he
Well,
did.
okay.
Except for all the ones that he did.
Okay, Spielberg never made a bad movie before 1990.
There you go. I'll accept that. I have a friend who's a big movie guy, and he loves Spielberg. And I don't have anything against Steven Spielberg, but when I see a Spielberg movie, I'll go, oh, this is such a Spielberg moment. It's like, oh, this is so heavy-handed Spielberg right now. But he's rich and talented and powerful, and I am not. So I have to give him the props. He's better off than I am. So.
Yeah, I actually think Spielberg is pretty brilliant, although like when he was at his prime, he was like the best in the business.
Sure.
And I'm not here to crap on Spielberg. I love him for the stories he's given us. Padar, why Padar?
See, and Julie just reminded me that he did Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park was a great movie. I don't want to completely. Jurassic Park, awesome movie, and Spielberg has made really great movies, and he's made War of the Worlds, but he's also made great movies. So.
Well, I'm not sure I want to go there. I'm not a big fan of Tom Cruise myself.
Yeah.
Although I did really like Minority Report, which is Spielberg and Tom Cruise again. So
that movie was really good, except that it had a happy ending. The happy ending just kind of like ruined the movie.
Okay,
going up to it.
You wanted it a little more dystopian, huh?
Well, what happened? Okay, I don't want to discuss Spielberg movies all night long because we could, but that movie was really solid. And then there's a moment where it gets super bad when he is incarcerated. Spoilers for Minority Report, and then essentially God just kind of like arranged for everything to like work out magically to get him out. I was like, this is like the biggest contrived ass stuff going on. So I didn't like all that. So in my brain, Tom Cruise is still incarcerated, frozen, and the end of the movie is him having a dream about being rescued by his ex-wife.
Okay.
I apologize to all the Spielberg fans. I apologize.
No, well, I want your honest opinions always. John might not be too happy about it. My co-host John Webster Film here.
I'm sorry, John, but he's spreading lies right now by saying the Minority Report is a masterpiece. Lies, I tell you.
Ooh. And see, here I thought you two would get along so well.
I respect that he loves what he loves, and that's fine. That's fine.
John loves every movie that's ever been made, more or less. He's just the movie guy, hence the film at the end of his name. I heard he legally changed his last name to Film. So I got another question for you. This is one I like to throw out every once in a while. And I need you to defend your position on your answer. Okay.
Okay.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
A hot dog is it's not a sandwich because a sandwich. Okay, this is bad. This is really bad. All right, a hot dog, it goes into a bun, and a bun is not a sandwich. But you might say, well, Pat, isn't like a sub that is a folded thing also a sandwich? No, to me, a sandwich is two pieces of bread. This is awful. You're gonna get half of the people hating me now. Anyway, I'm gonna say that a hot dog is not a sandwich unless you have a hot dog sandwich, which is two pieces of bread with a hot dog in between. Because I have done that before, but usually it's not. At most, I will say that a hot dog is a half sandwich.
So the qualifier for it to be a sandwich is two pieces of separated bread?
If that's the criteria that at this second I want to go with, yes.
Okay, so you're also reserving the right to change your answer.
Yes,
I think it's acceptable.
Yeah, because any issue that is like really kind of trivial, you are allowed to completely flip-flop from all the time. You're allowed to do that.
Well, these are the big questions. But yeah. I that's one that I like throwing out. It's just
Yeah,
always interesting to like defend your position.
sure.
I don't really care.
Yeah, right. I don't either. It's always fascinating to me. I mean, pretty soon we'll be talking, is a hot dog actually a taco? Because topologically they are very similar, more so than a sandwich. So
Right. But like, what is the definition of sandwich? Um, One of the things I wanted to make sure we touched on, Pat, was we did a panel together at Con of Thrones last year in Nashville.
right.
And it was my favorite panel I've ever done. And it included such fandom luminaries as Maester Mary, Joe Magician, Shakes of Thrones, and our very own Nessie, who is in the chat right now. And that is a topic that, or that is a panel that we kind of got into together. Like they blended two panels,
Yeah,
but the
yeah,
two panels they blended were put together by the three of us men and the three ladies.
right.
And,
Something like that. Yeah,
but even then, like I kind of hooked up to that because of you guys had done the panel the year before, which was like Wildling Justice. Is that right?
well, the one that Matt and I and Ian Thomas Malone and man, there's a Canadian professor whose name escapes me. I feel bad, but she was great as well. And we had a panel on, it was like ethics north of the wall. It was something like that. It was something like the societal constructs that are north of the wall. And so we talked about cannibalism. We talked about like wife stealing or whatever. And we talked about the economic or the environmental like levers that would excuse behavior that would normally not be allowed south of the wall. And that was a really good time. Joe Magician talked a lot about the kind of like the unspoken rules of warging, that you were allowed to, eat a human as a warg. That's a taboo. There's all these taboos that were kind of like laid out. And so we talked about how those kind of things came about. And that was a fun panel. And so for the second year, we decided to take it south of the wall and just handle like what's unique about the North and its kind of like legal system between the wall and the neck. And so that was one group presented that, and the other group, like Mary and Shakes of Thrones, had put together like a similar proposal. And so they blended us all together into like a mega panel of people. And that was a really fun panel. I got to moderate that, and I let everybody talk. So that was good.
And I have said that was my favorite panel I've done. I've done probably 10 different panels at this point. Maybe not quite that many, but still, I've done a few now. And it's been by far my favorite. And it might just be down to the fact that you had control and you were making sure everybody had their time and everybody was trying to be real succinct and get their point across. But like even to come into that, because the panel ended up being Northern Justice and Guest Right.
Right.
Which are obviously two things that are very tied together. And but I came to it because while you and Matt had done the Wildling Justice panel, I had done a Is Ned Actually Honorable panel.
That was a good panel, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That was my first panel that I ever proposed, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Sure would have been better not to do it at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, but you take the time you're given.
Yeah.
But like that is, so I guess my question, I'm sorry, this is a really roundabout way of asking you, is that a thing like those sort of social constructs and social contracts that exist unspoken? Is that something you've always enjoyed sort of deconstructing or examining?
See, I would say yes, but I don't know because I don't really remember. I'm going to tell you that I feel like I have done more kind of like homework reading A Song of Ice and Fire and watching Game of Thrones and writing about it than I ever did like in high school. Because like in high school, I'm pretty sure my English teachers would try to get me involved in reading like whatever garbage trash they were trying to have us read, and we would like deconstruct stuff, and I was a bad student. But if I could go back in time and try to apply the kind of like the work ethic that I had in blogging essays about Game of Thrones to whatever garbage I had to read in high school, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. I mean, I was just not into reading Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and now I would like to go back and read Tess of the D'Urbervilles and just like really enjoy it, because clearly there are these classic books that they must be good because everybody either reads them or they talk about reading them. So I can't say that I've always been all that interested, but I've certainly become interested in reading about society and trying to like kind of tease out more information for that. And really, you have to do that if you want to write any kind of an analysis piece. You know, particularly if you want to write something that probably has not been covered 100 times.
Right. That's fantastic. I'm also obviously very interested in those type of topics as well. But I was just curious, about maybe, the origin of that type of that thing. Just something that goes with the territory of writing analysis, I guess.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a good example. I mean, at most, when I was in high school, I was part of the Model United Nations, and that's like that's a lot of jabbering and making up crap. So so before the Model UN, I never did anything that required thinking about society or thinking about what it is about this country that might be different than another country. But I wish I could give you a really entertaining story about that. But no, I was a dullard troll until I started reading A Song of Ice and Fire.
I don't believe that for a second.
Okay.
But I am not blind to the fact that, engaging with this text has improved my life and made me a better person as well.
Yeah.
A more thoughtful person. Yeah. Padar says he did Model UN as well. You might have debated.
If you went to the Old Dominion University, my high school went to Old Dominion University for the Model UN, where we would compete against other high schools. So maybe we did. It would be down in Virginia.
Right on. So we're about an hour in. I'll go ahead and do the mid-roll right now. So, Pat, thanks for joining us. Everyone in the chat, thanks for being here. Just really excited that we're getting to do this. Got to make sure I remember to shout out the patrons. So, many thanks to John Bronsteen the Wise, Lord John Bronsteen. Thank you so much, John, for your support. Also, big shout out to Ridiculous Ed Tollett, first big patron, first one to get his name read aloud ever. And brother, I love you. You've been there since the beginning. Thank you so much, Sean. And also Sixto Sounds, my IRL buddy JP. Go check out his music channel, Sixto Sounds, Sixto Sounds, and learn how to shred your guitar like a metal god. All right, that having been said, got to make sure we talk about what's coming up next. So, next week, John and Nessie will be back, and we will be discussing Season 1 of Star Wars, The Clone Wars animated series. John has been a long-time fan. I am working my way through it right now, and it's quite good. We will also be having the lovely Maester Mary joining us for that conversation. She is one of the biggest Star Wars fans I know. She's been screaming about the Clone Wars for weeks, and I'm super happy to have her back. The week after that, there is nothing on the schedule yet. And I'm not going to make a huge political statement out of this, but I will say that I am looking to have more people of color creators and fandom friends on the channel, we have become complacent about that. So moving forward, we're going to endeavor to have more people of color who are creators and fandom friends on board, on camera, sharing their voices and opinions. And so we look forward to that. Not sure what's scheduled for 2 weeks from now, but yeah, that's hopefully we will be able to have some content that will help give voice to that underserved segment of our fandom family. What else? Oh, right. Immediately after this stream, you can pop over to Nessie's channel, The Unspun Yarn, to watch her open some boxes that we sent her this week. I don't want to tell all of her story herself. She can tell as much or as little as she wants, but let's just say she had a very difficult and trying week last week, and a lot of us got together and wanted to put a smile on her face this coming week, and I think we're accomplishing that. She's going to do an unboxing video of some of the stuff we sent her pretty much immediately after this stream is over. So as soon as Nessie puts that up, I will be sharing that link. So Nessie, that's a hint that you need to go make that stream so I can link it at the end. But yeah, I'm not sure I got anything else for the mid-roll. I'll think of something and I'll butt in. But yeah, again, thanks for being here, everyone. And let's get back to Pat.
All right.
Yeah, I'm always a little bit awkward with the mid-roll because, yeah, as you can see, I script nothing.
That's fair.
I just meander through life pretty much the same way no matter what. But people keep coming back, so I must be doing something right. I have no idea what people are talking about in the chat right now. Oh, that's a good question. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
That is a good question. I'm not a super concert goer, but I have. I used to work for the pop concert committee at my college. I went to Virginia Tech, and so we would have concerts come in, and we had the Ramones come and play at the Burris Administration Building. So Burris was our administration hall, and they had a small auditorium. We usually couldn't get big acts come in for our stadiums because the Lane Stadium had a wooden ceiling, so they couldn't hang heavy equipment from the ceiling. So any band that would come would have to have like risers set up. Beans and chili.
We'll get to it.
I'm not talking about that anyway. So a lot of acts would not come to play Virginia Tech because we just couldn't accommodate them. But the Ramones came, and they had a very simple setup. We were playing at Burris Hall, and that was the best concert. I've seen the Ramones a few times. The first time I got to experience the Ramones live. But I was assigned to guard a side door. It was kind of like off to the side. And so I would kind of be able to hear the show but not see it. And the first act was some kind of, I forget who it was. It was nobody important. But all of the punks from Roanoke, and I say that lovingly, the punks from Roanoke came to see the Ramones, and they were very calm during the first show. And then right at the end, during the intermission before the Ramones came on, the whole audience got up and they surged forward to stand right in front of the barricades that we had, because we had barricades that we would put out in front of the stage. Well, the auditorium building had like an orchestra pit, and our barricades were kind of in the orchestra pit. So we had risers down in the orchestra pit with the barricades on top of that. So the barricades really kind of came up to like your waist level. They weren't really super barricades.
Like a safety hazard to me.
Well, yes. So the deal was this. All of a sudden we realized that we had several hundred punks getting ready to rush the stage, and we had very little in the way of stopping them. And so the guy who was in charge of security was my friend Steve, and we called him Rivet Head. So I'm going to call him Rivet Head for the rest of this segment. The riverhead came to me and he said, "Get in the pit." I'm like, dude, I have to guard this door. And he's like, "No, you have to get into the pit." So everybody was in the pit. And I realized why, because it's like a wall of people. So when the show started, the lights go out and you hear 1, 2, 3, 4, and the band starts playing, and that's the way every song was. The crowd surged forward, and we were just like holding them back as best as we can, because as you said, it's a safety hazard, but also, our job is to keep them from getting to the stage. And it was crazy. And so I didn't get to see any of the show. I had my back to the band the entire time. And I could not remember a single song that was played other than 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's the way it would go. So I think 3 guys got past us and actually got onto the stage. When I say 3 guys got past us, a lot of people got past us, but we're stuck in the pit. I mean, they really couldn't go anywhere, and we could just kind of escort them out. And everybody was pretty cool about it. They just wanted to get to the stage. We didn't want to have any problems. But I was watching our barricades kind of like be torn apart. I mean, I saw like the nails being worked out of the wood as people were working on it. So the end of the show came. We had to like salvage what was broken on our barricades. And one of the Ramones guys, not one of the band, but one of their roadies, came by and said, 3 people got on stage. That was like the best security we have seen at a concert. And maybe he was lying to us, but it was good. I mean, it was good because everybody had a good time. It was exciting. I almost had a heart attack. I was a small guy in college, so I was terrified for my life, but it was a great time. So that was the best concert I've been to for sheer like exhilaration and adrenaline, and also like love. I mean, I loved everybody that came to the show and the passion that they had, and nobody got hurt. Everybody had a great time, but it was crazy.
Right on. Well, like, that's just not what I would have expected you to answer. The best concert I ever been to is one where I had to do this to keep people from dying the whole time.
It was amazing. It was an amazing time. I compare that to like watching Hard Home on Game of Thrones when the whites were like leaping off the top of the cliff.
Right.
I was having flashbacks to that concert.
Right. Okay. Whoa. Not again. So how about best? Let's answer that question again, but like not one. How about one where you were just in the audience?
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you're not prepared to go there, that's fine.
I had a good time at a Miley Cyrus concert. Hannah Montana played in Baltimore, and my daughter was a giant Hannah Montana fan, and my wife was friends on a Beatles forum with someone who worked for Disney, and they scored tickets through like a friends and family type of discount thing. And so we went to see the Jonas Brothers open for Hannah Montana. And this is before anyone knew who the Jonas Brothers was. Now, I have like weird criteria for concerts because, I was not necessarily a Hannah Montana fan, but I didn't dislike it. But we were there and there were celebrities within like 2 rows of me because celebrities brought their kids to see the show. And we had really good seats. And so the Jonas Brothers came out and everybody began screaming. And we had earplugs in because I'm an old man. I'm going to bring earplugs to a concert. And the screaming was like driving me crazy, not in a bad way, but I was like, wow, that screaming is so loud. So I pulled one earplug out because I wanted to get the full experience. And it was like being hit with a hammer. It was so loud. I was like, wow. So again, I enjoyed that as a concert because it was like an event. It was crazy. Now, I've seen good concerts. I've seen Jonathan Coleman in concert a lot. I've seen the Ramones in concert a bunch of times. I saw the Kinks in concert. That was one of the ones that we worked. Ray Stevens in concert was really good. I got to help escort Ray Stevens to his piano because I was working on the concert committee, and so it was one of his guys and me, and we escorted him to the stage. And I didn't go on stage, but I escorted him to there. But because I was head of security for that particular show, I got to help out with that, and that was exciting. I mean, it was exciting to be that close to Ray Stevens. But
he came up on another stream or something. Maybe it was even on a Zoom call not that long ago. But I love Ray Stevens. That man is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like he's got a million. He's not Weird Al. Weird Al does parody, Ray Stevens writes original songs that are ridiculous and funny. And I love him. I've loved him ever since I found out about him. And I probably found out about him, from my parents', cassette tapes of his music. I'm a little bit jealous that you got to meet him pretty much up close and personal.
Yep.
So we'll answer Padar's question here. Beans and chili or not?
Yeah, beans should go into chili. I mean, why not?
But what kind of beans?
I don't know what beans.
There's
normally
only one correct answer.
Is it pinto beans?
No.
What bean is it?
They are mesquite beans.
Well, hoity-toity to you, but I don't care. I mean,
well, there you have it. He doesn't care.
Whatever.
Mystery solved.
I'm pretty sure that we get red beans for when we make chili, but I will tell Lisa that we make unauthentic chili. Is the mesquite beans a Texas chili type thing?
Yes, yeah. Mesquite trees are everywhere out here, so they were a handy staple. You could just throw them in the pot, and it would add a lot of substance to the chili for the cattle. The cowboys as they were driving cattle.
Is Cincinnati where they don't put beans in their chili?
Probably.
Yeah. It seems like a waste of chili. I mean, I like the beans in the chili. So.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, somewhere overseas. I'm not sure.
Right.
See, Padar, what you're failing to understand is that we are both such nice guys. Maybe we'll poke fun at each other a little bit, but no. there will be no large scale conflict here, despite your best efforts, my man.
See, and now I'm interested in trying out some mesquite beans in a chili. So
you're gonna have trouble finding them.
All right.
I'm not kidding. Yeah. For what it's worth, they're difficult to find in Texas, as Desert Stormborn Charlie 11 is telling us right here. He also lives in the suburbs of Dallas, maybe 25 miles away from me, and it's difficult to find mesquite beans to put in your chili. I just like asking the question of people to set them up for conflict.
Yeah.
Fabricating conflict for the purpose of spectacle. Part of what we do here.
I'm in on it. Yes, I approve.
Oh, there's another good question. What is your opinion about the Dark Crystal? You've seen the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance show on Netflix?
I've seen the first episode on Netflix, but I saw the movie in theaters because I'm that old, and I enjoyed it. And I remember seeing that movie about the same time that I saw Legend, which is another good fantasy, movie. I enjoyed Dark Crystal the movie, and I enjoyed the first Age of Resistance. We just don't have enough time, I think, to watch everything. At some point, we'll get around to watching Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. At some point, we'll get around to watching it.
Yeah, it was almost a meme on this channel that I was never going to watch that show, and then John and Ashaya did. They covered it over on John's channel a few weeks ago. And just, listening to the two of them talk about it because they both loved it so much was at least enough for me to give it a chance. And because my first go with it, I made it through 10 minutes and I'm like, nope, these creepy puppets are just, nope, I'm done.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, I got a lot of flack, for not giving it more of a chance. But I have since watched most of it. I'm not quite done yet. You must watch this for the channel schedule. It has been pretty full. So,
did you ever see the original movie?
Oh yes, I saw it in theaters.
Okay,
I am that old.
Very good. Yes, we've established that you and I are kind of a demographic. So
I was still a child when that movie came out, like 8. I don't remember what year it came out. Maybe even as old as 12.
You might have been older. I think I want to say that I saw it in college, but. Okay.
I was probably 12 or 13 then. But yes, I was still a child. But I really enjoyed that movie as a kid. So, yeah. But it took me a while to come around on the Netflix show. I don't know why, but it did. But I think it gets better as it goes along.
Cool. I've heard that it's good, but just like we've only seen partway through the third season of The Expanse, we just have to prioritize what we're watching. So one day we'll get it.
Say that again about The Expanse?
I said we're only halfway through the third season of The Expanse.
Oh, halfway through the third season.
Right.
Yeah, okay. The third season is my favorite season of that show.
It's such a good show. I mean, that show is so good. But I'll tell you, I saw the first season when my wife and daughter were down in Orlando for some kind of like school field trip, and I had wanted to watch. I'd heard good things about The Expanse, so I watched the first season, and it was like blew me away. And so when my wife came home, I said, "You and I are going to watch The Expanse." And so I rewatched the first season, but unfortunately, sometimes we only have a chance to watch it late at night, and if my wife is tired, it's hard for her to stay awake. In the first season of The Expanse, they talk really quiet a lot. There's a going on the entire time. And so the quiet talk with the white noise just like laid her out flat. So I had to work out our viewing schedule so that she'll be alert and ready to enjoy it. Because that show is something that you just don't want to miss. I mean, you just don't want to like not pay attention to it while it's on.
You're going to miss something.
Yep.
It's very dense. Well, I'm glad you're working your way through it. Sanrixian, good friend, you know her.
Uh-huh.
Good friend of mine. She just started watching The Expanse today.
Oh, this is wonderful.
And she was talking about it in the Slack group, and she's already like, I'm in love with this. And yeah, so
perfect.
I'm so happy that one of my other friends is getting into it as well. So you're not caught up then. No. I thought you had seen the whole thing, but so you're about halfway through the third season.
Yeah. Are there 4 seasons?
There are 4 right now. Yes.
Okay. So we're not too far out back, but
yeah. But the third is my favorite. There's definitely sort of like a shift mid-season.
Yeah.
I don't know which side of that you're on yet.
Yeah, I have inklings of stuff going on, but right now I think what we're watching is still very grounded with what had been going on in the second season.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just say there's a point where time passes off screen.
Okay.
And if you haven't made it there yet, that tells me pretty much exactly where you are, which is some of my favorite stuff in the whole series. Like, I love that show. Do you have a favorite character in that show at this point?
That's a good question. I really liked Miller. I'll tell you, I really like Julie Mao. In fact, Julie Mao got like a lot of cool screen time for like not actually, being around. But I think Avasarala is my all-time favorite character. I love her a lot. Bobby Draper is great. I love her. I love Bobby. Damn it, Amos. I love Amos. I love Naomi. Gosh, I love all those characters.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to love, and we've done quite a bit of Expanse coverage on this channel. Like, we've covered each season individually. We've been working our way through major character art. Like doing close examinations of major characters. We've done Amos and Bobby so far. And that might be down to my favorite characters, Amos. Nessie's favorite character is Bobby, which means that Miller, John's favorite character, is probably the one up next. But I would have agreed with you that Avasarala was my favorite character for the first 2 seasons, but by the time we got to the end of the third season, it had become Amos, just because he's so layered. He's so...
Yes, he's so layered. I completely agree. Because when he's first introduced, he's just like, okay, I know everything about this guy that I need to know. He's like a musclehead. No, he has so many things going on with him.
Yeah, there's layers on layers on layers to that character. Like, I remember watching him first season and being like, I have no idea what this guy is going to do. I just can't predict him. But like now I can look back and go, that's exactly what Amos would do. I mean, obviously that's exactly what he did, but like I almost feel like I can predict him better now than I could, despite the fact that he's so off the wall sometimes.
Sure.
So yeah, looking forward to getting caught up on that one then.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have you come on and share some of your thoughts about the series, because you are great at analysis too.
Thank you.
One of the things that I've always appreciated about your work is your writing is that you are thorough in your not only understanding of the material like at its base level, but like reading deeper, kind of penetrating to the truths that can be hidden beneath the surface story.
Or truths that I manufacture at that moment, because that's the danger of interpretations. But I appreciate that. I think that when you look at something that has been looked at a lot, you have to work hard to package it in such a way so that it's even if it's stale, it should be fresh. And so I sometimes I cover things that probably have been talked about, but I try to put like a zing to it, so at least it's fun to read.
Right.
But I do think that I have a lot of what I consider a good original analysis on some things. I don't find it like a lot of what I have written elsewhere, but that's not. I'm sure that's not true. I just means probably I need to look harder at.
I mean, don't sell yourself short. So, ultimately, though, my point is hearing some of what you have to say about The Expanse, especially as more of the story unfolds. I'm here for it, man. If you wrote about it, I would read about it.
Okay. Well, thanks. I do need to write more, because I've not been writing as much as I had in the past. Because back in the old days when Game of Thrones was on, I had a strong work ethic where I would be writing an essay every 1 or 2 weeks. In between the seasons, like when the season would end, every 2 weeks I would write a Game of Thrones essay. And then when January rolled around, I would go weekly. I'd write an essay every week. And so I would crank out, I think, 24 essays in between each season. And so I have close to 200 essays if we count what I wrote for Watches on the Wall as well. But some of my stuff that I wrote is kind of fluff. I mean, I'm not going to try to say that it's all groundbreaking, but it was fun. And the fact that I had like a hardcore deadline that I had to get something out, it really got me focused on things. So I do need to probably like refine some kind of like writing focus, because I enjoy writing. I think it's fun. I enjoy Sanrixian. I'm glad you like the shirts we're wearing. But having like a focus on what to write about is good. I would be more productive in that case.
Right on. Sanri, you popped in at just the perfect time. We were talking about Pat is working his way through The Expanse, which I know you started today because we were talking about it earlier. So, so glad you could make it. Now, don't go watch another episode until after this.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. All right. So, chat. Go ahead and if you've got questions for Pat, I mean, you've been doing it all evening. That's how we do. But go ahead and throw any questions for Pat in while and to give them a chance to catch up. I am going to throw you under the bus. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I've been waiting for this. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you have a super secret Twitter account that is one of the greatest things on that entire platform. And I didn't know it was you for the longest time. And I don't even remember how I found out it was you, but yeah.
Well, hold on. I think you're incorrect. You're talking about the Biggest Hounds account, the Ice Spiders. I'm not that guy.
No, I'm not talking about that. I see you trying to deflect, my praise, but absolutely not.
Well, that is the greatest Twitter account of all time. But
it's pretty great. But I'm going to respectfully disagree, at least while you're my guest and here listening.
Sure.
I will say it to your face. When your back is turned, maybe something else. But Sanri, look at her. She's like, don't dox him.
I give him permission. It's okay. Besides,
permission. It's pretty. I think it's actually kind of known now.
Yeah, I dox myself, but if anybody who goes to that account, if they kind of click through to like the link for the blog post for them, my name is on that. But you can go ahead and say who I am. I don't care. It's all good. I'm ready for this.
All right, I'm honored that like this is where this is going public. And I do want you to expand upon this as
sure.
But yeah, your other Twitter account is what is it? Orcs of Winterfell.
It's at Winterfell Orcs.
Yeah, at Winterfell Orcs.
And it's Orcs Love Winterfell is like the Twitter like label name.
Right.
Not everyone probably knows what this is, and some of you are going like, I don't know what you're talking about. I appreciate that, but some of you know that there's a Twitter account about a collection of orcs who watch Game of Thrones on Sauron's Palantir, and they strongly identify with the Stark. And I have used that account pretty much a lot during Davos Fingers' March Madness, where I will vote for candidates, and then the orcs will vote for candidates. Coincidentally, we vote for the same candidate, but people really enjoy talking to the orcs about why they're choosing this over that, and the orc's opinion on who is an elf and who is not. And there's up to 7 different, personalities who are operating the orcs account at one time: Sir Gorbag and Gothmog and Gobbo Boglins. So I enjoy so much interacting with people, not as myself, but as a collection of orcs who just love Game of Thrones so much.
Yeah, so that I think it's kind of brilliant. Like you have this whole narrative about, you're specifically Sauron's orcs, not Saruman's orcs.
Not Saruman's orcs. Yeah. Yeah, Orc Nan is a popular one. The orcish version of Old Nan, who is one of the voting part of the orc voting bloc, who votes in for Davos Fingers. But I can give you some background on how that all came around if you.
Yes, I would love that, because like that is clearly the intersection of two very major huge fandom around both of those stories, both A Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, and like Lord of the Rings.
By the way, I'm really happy that Aragorn the Elfstone just showed up to say don't support orcs.
My gosh.
It's nice to hear from the Necromancer. Yeah, right on, man. It's not the orcs' fault that you're unfairly handsome. So the reason that I started tweeting as orcs is years ago, I would write blog posts usually in response to things that I would hear in Game of Thrones podcasts or like in forums or something. Somebody would say something that would spark my interest. And there was a TV podcast that was covering Game of Thrones. And one of the hosts did not like Game of Thrones because he likes a story where the heroes don't get brutalized all the time. And he said, I like Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings, the good guys win, whereas in Game of Thrones, clearly the good guys never win. They just get busted on 100% of the time. And I thought, well, if you look at Lord of the Rings and you look at it from like the orcs' point of view, they get their asses kicked all the time. They're always like really close to getting something, and then it's taken away from them. And that corresponds really nicely with things like Robb Stark has like a really good plan. He's, in the books, he's not going to attack Castle Rock. He's going to like retake the North by going around Moat Cailin. All he has to do is go to the Freys. He's got a wedding to go to, but then he's ready to take on, and boom, it all goes south. Arya is so close. They're getting close to her mom and her brother, and the Red Wedding happens. Oh, so close. And all of these things happen where the Starks are like really nearly on the verge of like, this will be good for the Starks, and then something really bad happens to them. Now, we know in Game of Thrones, it's actually kind of like balanced out. I mean, the bad guys, if we call like, people who aren't Starks the bad guys, they have their ups and downs as well. Whereas Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship is always like under pressure. It's always kind of like rough for them, but really they have like a straight arc. getting that ring into Mordor. I mean, there's not a lot of crazy things happen really. Whereas the orcs, first off, the special forces, the Nazgul, are just about to get that ring. They get wiped out when the river rises up and washes them away. It's like the river took care of them. And then the heroes go into Moria. That's like Orc Central. They're like delivering that ring basically to Sauron. And no, shoddy, dwarf bridge construction takes it out. And maybe some like wizardly things, voids, causes everything. So they escape. And then, they get into Rohan. And Saruman's orcs come in and they've got a crazy huge army. It's going to like this. I mean, okay, they're not going to get the ring. They're going to wipe out Rohan, and that's going to be bad because that's going to be like a major ally, the Gondor. And what happens? The trees eat them. Like, what the hell? The trees are eating us. We didn't sign up for this. But it's okay. It's okay. Those are Saruman's orcs. But then there's a lot of the orcs in Mordor, and they march, and they do well. They get all the way to Minas Tirith. They are so close to taking Minas Tirith. Then Aragorn shows up with an army of the dead who can't be killed and just crushes the orcs. And then worse bad things happen. I mean, they're almost going to win because Aragorn marches to the Morinnon. They're going to surround them, and all of the good guys are going to be wiped out, and the orcs are going to like wipe out the heir to Gondor. And then they almost get the ring because Frodo puts the ring on. Oh no! And then Gollum bites the ring off, falls into the thing. The ring is destroyed. The tower falls down. An earthquake just wipes out the orcs. The orcs are like, "What is going on?" So anyway, so if you look at it from the orcs' point of view, they get their butts kicked endlessly. Whenever they get any kind of hope, it's taken from them. It's like the Red Wedding all the time if you're an orc. So I'll calm down. I wrote
don't do that, man. This is fantastic.
Anyway, so I wrote an essay basically comparing, like, this is the story of the Starks. Now they have conflicts with these beautiful blonde people, and this goes on, and this goes on, and things look good for them. Bo is taken away. And then I compare it pretty much a beat for beat with the orc story. And of course, I'm totally cherry picking. I'm crazy cherry picking from the story because there's very little similarity between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. But it's fun to like look where there are these kind of like story beats in common, that there are these orcs and they're minding their own business, but they have bad times with beautiful blonde people, and maybe things will work out for them. Maybe it will. They got this big army. They got a good battle plan. Wow. They didn't see that coming. So I basically be jabbering at you was what I wrote down a couple of years ago. And I thought that was fun. It was fun to kind of think of things from the orcs' point of view. So I created a Twitter account, and at first it was called Got Orcs for Game of Thrones orcs, but then I didn't like that, so I renamed it Winterfell Orcs. So I wanted to have the orcs' perspective to be like really focused, as if they lived near Winterfell. That the North was actually like one of these Tolkien realms in the North where Morgoth used to run things, and they hate the Lannisters because the Lannisters are elves. They love the Starks because the Starks are orcs. Starks have dire wolves, the orcs have dire wolves, and so it all kind of like played into that. So I would watch Game of Thrones, and I would try to create like little like memes out of the orcs responding to like what was going on from a very orcish perspective. That Stannis was so close to winning, he just needed to accept a ring from Sauron, and then the deal would be sold because he's got this like fire enchantress with him already. He already has a witch. He's halfway to being an agent of Sauron anyway. And so the orcs were quite disturbed because I was starting to tweet about the show from the orcs' perspective during season 5. And season 5 is a rough season to be a fan of the Starks. Bad things happen. So I would just kind of tweet more randomly as the orcs responding about Game of Thrones. But when Davos Fingers did their contest, I would show up every contest. I'd have the orcs pick someone. They'd make a case. It would be an orcish perspective type of thing. And then I would have the different orcs. Orc-Nan would show up. Gothmog. I would have
Gorbag is my favorite.
Sir Gorbag, please. He is an anointed knight.
You're right. Yeah, give him his proper due. Sir Gorbag.
And also Thranduil, the captive elf, would occasionally do a vote because the orcs wanted to share the experience of Game of Thrones with someone that wasn't an orc, and so they would drag their one captive elf out of the dungeon to watch Game of Thrones with them, and they enjoy debating with Thranduil about are the Lannisters evil or not. So I enjoyed that. And of course, there's the Mouth of Sauron would also occasionally tweet from the account. He's not an orc, but he gets to tweet, and the orcs don't like it, but they can't do anything about it. So.
Right. I love it because it's so the tone of that is so consistently like you clearly know your A Song of Ice and Fire and your Lord of the Rings very well to pull it off.
Thank you. And I've read the books, I've seen the movies. I need to refresh myself a lot on some of the Tolkien stuff, but I can fake. I know it enough that I can kind of fake it along. But one thing that works for me is that nobody can tell me how my orcs are supposed to behave. And if someone throws like really deep Tolkien lore at me, I can ignore it because it's all elf propaganda. It's like no, I don't know what you're talking about. Because I just don't want to have my orcs have a bad time. And so my orcs try very hard to be kind with everyone they interact with because it's fun. I mean, people don't expect an orc to like root for the guys who are clearly the heroes.
Who are the good guys, right?
They expect the orcs to root for Ramsay. I once had a guy who was like, it was like Ramsay versus somebody else in one of the earlier March Madness, Song of Madness contests, and they were shocked that the orcs were not voting for Ramsay. Well, why would we vote for Ramsay? That guy sucks. Well, you should because he's like disgusting and gross and nasty. And it's like, why are you being so mean to us orcs that you would think that we would like that?
Right. That's like anti-orcish propaganda.
Right on. Come on. Anyway, so it's more fun to treat the orcs as, look, we're just fans who enjoy Game of Thrones, and we love you fans as well. We all should watch the show and enjoy it.
Well, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I think that Orcs Love Winterfell is one of the great contributions to the fandom. And I salute you for it because you not only, I mean, and they don't just come out like I see you around all the time, or we'll just call them. I see them around all the time, commenting about this and that and the other thing. They even inspired my sort of like lurking Twitter name, which maybe you can guess, maybe you can't. But I'll tell you after the stream.
Interesting. I'm curious now. I appreciate that. When I'm on Twitter, and if somebody's having like a bad day, I'm happy. I'm personally happy to say something nice to them, or to say, look, I'm rooting for you. And it doesn't, it doesn't really marginally improve what's going on, but everyone always seems to enjoy that. But when a bunch of orcs tell you that, they're rooting for you, that's something. People like that. People really respond well. There's a bunch of smelly, gross orcs who are like, hey, we hope things work out for you. We hope things get better. So there's very small way I like to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure this isn't necessarily the intent, but like I think it's an important mental exercise for people to try to see things from another perspective. And if the tweet of orcs who identify as with Starks will help somebody sort of like broaden the way they can see the world, I'm all for it. And they're pretty hilarious, let's be honest.
Well, the orcs are relentless about taking photos of dogs and cats and trying to convince people that actually these are orcs.
Actually, these are orcs. Yeah.
Like why not? Why couldn't an orc look like a dog? They have teeth. They got pointy ears. So I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, I basically have been convinced that pugs are orcs at this point.
Oh yeah. I mean, the fact that I cast my pug Chi-Chi as Orc Nan, I'll occasionally take a photo for her, and then the orcs will share her as Orc Nan is tired, or Orc Nan just ate something that didn't agree with her, and I relentlessly share pictures of my pug, so I'm happy that I can do it in 2 different platforms.
Right on. Well, y'all, we've got about 20 minutes left, so if you have any questions for Pat, make sure you get them in, and at the end, I'm going to post this link in the chat right now. You can go there and watch Nessie unbox her gifts that we sent her this week. Yeah. So, and I'll post the link again before the end of the stream. But if you wanted to go over there ahead of time and sort of like put it on in the background, there you go.
Julie Beth, by the way, is saying the nicest things about my works, and I appreciate that. Slayer, thank you for being one of my Twitter friends.
Yeah, she's wonderful. I've met her IRL one time. Because she was in Dallas, and we managed to stop by and get some coffee and hang out for a couple hours.
I remember seeing that on Twitter, and I was very jealous of you because she's so cool. And I was also jealous of everyone who got to meet her when she went to Ice and Fire Con last year because I've never been able to go. So maybe one year.
All right, so Sanri asks, who is your favorite A Song of Ice and Fire character? We have not asked that yet, and I think it's a fine question.
I think my boring go-to answer would be Sir Davos because he's such a big fave all around. But I actually, it's hard because favorites are hard. I mean, I like Davos for a lot of reasons. I tend to like secondary characters. And if you had asked me at any given week, I might say that Bronn was my favorite character because I am so looking forward to what Bronn does now that Cersei has foiled her attempt to assassinate him. Because Bronn, to me, carries the same kind of like Sir Davos energy that I want to see in these like secondary characters. But I think I once promoted Bronn as a favorite character at the last Con of Thrones, and I got yelled at by everybody. So I'm going to have to withdraw my love for Bronn, but I do love Bronn. I think Maura Reed maybe is one of my favorite characters because I like the Reeds, and I like the neck, and I respect Mira all around. And because she is like, she's like, Jojen is like the analog to Melisandre, but Mira is another like Davos analog that I respect because all of the major characters have very fascinating secondary characters. And so Mira is the one that I would root for. I mean, I actually do root for Davos, but I think everyone does. So, it's kind of like I can't choose Arya as my favorite character or Jon Snow as my favorite character because they have so many big fans that they don't need my support. So I like to drop back a tier. So I will root for Mira all the time.
So what do you think of Bronn being a secret reign?
Good theory.
I'm not sure the origin of that theory.
I think because getting a reign next to a Lannister is like a nice counter to the reigns being wiped out by the Lannisters. I don't know. I think I've heard that theory, but I've never read anything like this or like supporting it. There's a lot of like this character is a secret this or this character is a secret that. I would not eschew that theory. I don't necessarily like support it, but I don't disrespect it.
Right on. Fair answer. I will warn you, you don't know Padar.
I don't. Sorry.
Padar came to us through our Expanse coverage first and foremost. Now, so he's the Expanse guy around here. Not that we all don't love it, but like Padar's the big Expanse guy. Although he Game of Thrones stuff too, clearly. But there's also a really good chance anything he asks you is literally just a question to troll you.
That's fair. No, and because I'm part orc, that's all good. So that's all good.
It's where you let your non-lawful good side reign.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I can see that Bronn might be playing like a long game of revenge against the Lannisters. So it's an interesting point. So I'll keep that in mind, and I'll give you credit. So.
Yeah, I think that's almost inspired, Courtney. If the orcs of Winterfell ever let a troll speak, you just name him Padar, and we'll all know that what you're referring to.
I'll keep that in mind.
It's the only troll, I don't know any trolls' names from the actual Legendarium, so. There may not even be any. Who knows? And also, like, I'm noticing a few folks who are in the chat who are not my regulars, and I just wanted to say to all of them, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm sure you came by because you know Pat, and Pat is such an amazing, amazing human being that we all just wanted to get in on some conversation. But I will say that about once a month I do this series called I Know That Nerd, where I try to have really fun, interesting conversations with people like Pat, and I wouldn't hate it if you subscribed to my tiny channel and gave the video a like. So I'd appreciate that, because I have seen was it Joanne or Joanna, and I see Benjamin, and I saw a couple others whose names I didn't recognize off the top of my head. Again, I can't remember now, but anyway, yes, please, thank you, and thank you for stopping by. Ooh, I see Sean Pink as well, Dancing Sean.
Dancing Sean. Well, if anybody who came here to hear me talk and they know me from Twitter, I apologize, because I write better than I sound, and it's better to see my words than to see my face. But I do appreciate anybody who came to see me talk from my Twitter feed. I'm very happy with all of my Twitter friends. I'm happy with my people that I know on Twitter because they followed me originally when I was blogging. So I've enjoyed meeting people and making friends and having, like, being part of a community. And I'm happy that we all have like a property that we can all consume and enjoy and discuss and debate and argue. Even when it gets contentious, it's nice to then come back and be less contentious.
Yeah, but don't sell yourself short, man. This has been a heck of a fun conversation. I'm not gonna lie. I've always I have people on as guests, not just because they're popular, not just because they have a big channel with a lot of followers or anything like that. Like, you and I, maybe we have very different approaches to life, what have you, but we're kindred spirits in a certain way about, we're both middle-aged white men, and we want to be the best allies we can, and we want to treat everyone with respect and be as accepting and inclusive as possible. And that is something that I have noticed about yourself, and that's something that I try to do myself. I just have mad respect for your ethics and morals.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm trying to do better, but
we all are.
But we all are. We all are. It's been quite a time. This year has been something else, and so this is the time when we all have to like support one another and try to share the burdens as best as we can, and use what tools we have to kind of like help out where we can. So I appreciate that.
Right on, right on. I figured out Benjamin's sister is Abby of Drawbridge Media, whose husband, I'm sorry, yeah, my apologies, Pat, but I'm
it's okay.
up. Abby's husband passed away a week and a half ago, about a week ago, and yeah, Joe Magician was donating his stream. Basically, we all donated yesterday, and that's where Benjamin found us, and we are happy to have you. I don't want to assume your gender, Benjamin. I can say he, but like that's just me. That's just Benjamin from a Game of Thrones.
Sure.
But always happy to have someone else join us. We are a lovely. There's a lot of wonderful people who are my regulars, which is why I'm really excited that they get to meet you, Pat. Because any of them that aren't following you and the Orcs on Twitter, you just need to get on that, because both you and your alter ego have lots of really great stuff to say.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep, of course. All right, y'all. Final 10 minutes. So last round of questions now. All right, Pat, Jedi or Sith?
Jedi. I mean,
Yeah,
here's.
okay.
I mean, lawful good, whatever.
Right.
I've seen arguments that say the Jedi suck, which they do, but the Sith suck worse than the Jedi. I mean, it's kind of like by definition the Sith suck. So I mean, so Jedi. I mean, if I have to choose, it's Jedi. So
All
now,
right.
if you're asking me, Return of the Jedi versus Revenge of the Sith, well, clearly, Revenge of the Sith is the better movie.
Ooh. Wait a minute. Have we just got to that first point where we disagree completely?
Maybe.
Maybe so.
It's because I have a bias against Return of the Jedi because being a little bit older, I saw Star Wars as a teenager. I saw Empire as a young adult, and I saw Jedi as an adult. And so I might have aged out of what Lucas was doing, but I enjoyed Return of the Jedi, but I did not. I thought that the Ewoks were dumb. They just were dumb.
Okay, fair enough.
And I respect people that enjoy Return of the Jedi, but for me, when Luke now there are two different movies. There's everything that is not going on the Death Star, which is all kind of dumb, and then the stuff on the Death Star that was great. The stuff between Luke and Darth and the Emperor was amazing, and it was just like its own type of movie. The only thing that I didn't like about that, and this is me, and you guys can not dislike me for it, it's fine, is that Darth Vader saving his son from the Emperor is less impressive to me than you might think, because in the movie, Darth Vader said, "Let's you and I kill the Emperor and we can rule the galaxy together." So Darth killing the Emperor still sounds like a part of his evil plan. So I never really bought it to me as a big redemption arc. Whereas Revenge of the Sith, which has like a lot of problems, has some really good scenes. And that whole scene where Anakin gets seduced by Palpatine at the Opera House, it's like a bad scene can make a movie bad. Nothing that's bad in Revenge of the Sith can break away how awesome the Opera House scene is. So I felt that movie delivered more so than the Jedi did.
I mean, agree or disagree, I think that your impassioned defense of your position was worth hearing.
Sure, but I respect everyone when it comes to Star Wars. That's a show that we all have very different perspectives on, and I can't force my opinions on anybody about it. I'm just delighted that my daughter, who refused to watch Star Wars, agreed to watch The Force Awakens and fell in love with Rey, and then became like a giant Jedi head, and she's got a lightsaber in her room, and she's ridiculous. So I was worried that I would not be able to have a Star Wars fan in the house.
Right.
There you go.
So Nessie asks, Yoda or Obi-Wan?
I believe I would support Obi-Wan over Yoda because Yoda's fine. He's cute, but Yoda's also, he's a bit of an asshole. I mean, he just is a bit of an asshole. And I just think that Obi-Wan is less of a dick than Yoda is. So he's got a little bit of dick energy going on there.
Okay. I mean, again, I'm going to disagree with you there as well. I think Yoda has, of the top 10 lines in Star Wars, 14 of them are Yodas.
Sure. Now, if you're going to say Baby Yoda versus Obi-Wan, well, clearly Baby Yoda is
the only acceptable answer.
Yes.
There's also some talk about Ewoks going on. You do realize they were going to cook and eat the heroes, right?
Sure. See, one of my biases against Ewoks is that between Empire and Jedi, Lucas talked a lot of game about the next movie. And he mentioned that we would be seeing like the Wookiee homeworld, and we would be seeing like Wookiees versus like stormtroopers. And I was like, I am here for that. And we did not get Wookiees. We got Ewoks. And I was like, ah. So I clearly I have a lot of issues I have to work through, and it's okay.
You got caught up in that anticipatory culture.
Yes.
Before in the pre-internet days.
I like X Factor 04 and hit that comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put it back up.
It's okay. When live 900 years you have, see how nice you become.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, he's a crotchety old man. He's got a reason to be cranky.
Sure. Point taken.
Point taken. Oh, man. Yeah, all right. Well, we're like 5 minutes from the 2-hour mark. I'm not going to artificially drag this out. If anybody's got a question for Pat, now is your last chance. Officially, last chance. We'll give the chat a minute to catch up while I close out with one of my favorite things to do at the end, and that is, Pat, we're going to make a movie about your life. I need you to cast a lead role. I need you to hire a director, and I need a title for the movie.
This sucks. How dare you ask me these questions? Oh, this is ridiculous. What are you talking about? All right, get Michael Cera from Arrested Development. Because I was very quite him when I was younger, so that would be fine. When I was in college, I looked like the guy who was from The Warriors. The movie The Warriors, there was the one bad guy who had the bottles and did the Warriors come out and play guy. I look just like him. So if you make him go back in time, then he could be me in an earlier thing. I'm a computer programmer, Betsy. Betsy just asked what I do in real life for work.
Okay, very cool.
I work for an engineering firm who does contracting to the government. So that's what I do. So I'm not going to quote. I'll cast Spielberg. Okay, I'll cast Spielberg. The reason I do that is I can argue with him all the time. He'll say, "Pat, we're going to have this guy show up, and he's going to be like your secret friendly mentor. And he's going to say this most cliche dialogue." And I'm going to say, "No, we're not. God damn it, that sucks." And then I'll say, "Oh, you know what? Mr. Shepard from high school was kind of like a Spielberg character. Damn it." And so maybe I'll have like some kind of like self-reflection on that. But in general, I would have him be the director just so I could tell him that he's a hack.
Okay.
So I cast me was Michael Cera. I cast Spielberg. And what was the third one I had to do?
Just we need a title for the movie about your life.
God damn it. Because the name of my blog is Patrick Sponaugle, which is the worst thing at all time because people don't know how to spell my last name. So I say, go to patricksponaugle.com to read my writings. I then have to spell it out for them. But I'm so used to spelling it, I would just say that the name should be Sponaugle, and that's just the way it should be. It's been a hard name for me to have. Oh, that's good. That is so good. That is so good. Pat Sponaugle. I like it. No. Sponaugle would be the name. You can make fun of it, but I'll just go with that as my.
It's very original. There is no other movie called Sponaugle or
it's lame. But it's my brand, but it would be lame. A lame title for a movie.
All right. Padar asks, "What's your favorite D&D world? Do you have a favorite setting to play Dungeons and Dragons in, or do you even remember from that long ago?"
I occasionally would do a D&D module, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I would always make up my own stuff, and so I would never. I never played like in Dark Haven, Darkmoor, or Grey Hawk or whatever. I never played those.
The original
Morrowind. I never played anything in Planescape Torment stuff. I never played in the bigger things like Castle Wolkenstein or whatever it was called, the Gothic horror type fun. I knew about all of them, but I never used them.
It was Ravenloft, by the way.
Ravenloft, thank you.
Yeah, I've played in all of them. And to this day, my preference is still for like my game world.
Yeah, just make up something. Because it was fun drawing maps. I mean, I really enjoyed making maps, not just the maps of the dungeon, but maps of the countryside, drawing little ruins, doing this, doing that. I just make up my own thing.
Right on. Well, we're gonna call it there though. But I'm with you. If you're gonna be the dungeon master, put in the work and make your own.
Right on. Yes. Now,
All right, y'all. Well, that's going to be the end for this episode. So thank you so much for everyone who stopped by to chat and show their love and respect, or like just to get to know Pat better. It was super fun to have pretty much all the regulars here and a couple of new faces. I'm really glad you all stopped by. Pat, thank you so much for being here. This was a blast, man, and
thank
we
you, man.
had a great conversation, as I knew we would.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me on. I was happy to do this. Thank you again.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to figure out a way to get you back on for maybe some Expanse stuff, because that's where my heart is right now. Is the Expanse stuff we've been doing.
Sounds good.
So until then, we'll see everyone soon. Excuse me. I did just post a link. It's on the screen. It's in the chat. That is Nessie's unboxing video that she will be starting in about 15 minutes, I believe. So go over there and check that out. Please remember to like and subscribe. Yeah, I'm doing the YouTube end of video thing. Links to Twitter and Patreon and all that stuff are down in there, not just for me, but links to Pat's Twitter and his blog are down in the description. Also, John and Nessie's stuff is down there. John Webster Film and the Unspun Yarn. Links to those channels are down below. I'm forgetting something, I'm sure. I don't know what it is. If I knew, I wouldn't be forgetting. I do remember. We have a Slack group for those of you that want to keep the conversation about this stuff going throughout the week. Anybody is welcome to join. I will kick you out if you're an asshole. So just be warned ahead of time. But most of the people who are in the chat right now are also involved in the Slack. But if not, you can send me a email to the address I'm about to put on in the chat as soon as I remember how to type. And that is we3dragons@gmail.com. If you want to join our Slack group, because I have to have an email address to send an invitation. We have a lot of fun over there. There's about 35 to 40 of us who are part of the group. Probably about half of us remain active a lot, but there's a lot of fun conversations happening over there. So yeah, there's that. One last time, going to post this link to Nessie's unboxing video, and I will be over there in about 10 minutes when she fires it up. So I hope to see you all there. And until then, thanks everyone. And you know what it is. Peace and be excellent to each other. We'll see you next time.